We're already well into 2024 and new great games are on the horizon. But before I get to those, I want to talk about my favorite games from 2023. As most people are more than well aware, 2023 was a very busy year for very good games. I finished a couple dozen new releases last year and the consistency of great games was almost overwhelming. In other years, some of the games in the middle of the pack might have made my top 10, but it was a pretty competitive year, so it was a bit of a bloodbath when I was making this list. I may be a bit late to the party, but I would be remiss if I did not make a video for my favorite games as good as the year was. To try and avoid this video being an hour and a half long, I'm going to try to be pretty concise and stick to a couple minutes or less per game. So with that said, let's look at my better late than never top 10 games of 2023. The first curveball on this list was the number 10 slot. When I was making my list, I had Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon sitting in that slot for a while, and as deserving as it is, the last moment I finally got around to finishing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and it took the number 10 spot. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a game I kind of had sitting in my backlog all year. I played it at launch for about an hour, and then I set it down for other things and saw lots of complaints about the performance and the bugginess of the game, so I figured I would just let it cook for a bit longer. Luckily, EA and Respawn actually put out some significant patches, and I was able to thoroughly enjoy this game in a pretty good state. Jedi Survivor is basically a 3D Metroidvania with some light Souls-like elements sprinkled into the combat. Both of these things speak to me as a gamer, but what really made me enjoy this game was the Force powers, which to be fair is something you would hope they would nail in a Jedi game. I would go out of my way just to force pull stormtroopers and throw them at each other. It was honestly so much fun. I really enjoyed the Metroidvania re-exploring aspect of the game, and even though most of the collectibles are either cosmetics or currencies to buy cosmetics, using the new platforming upgrades to get through fun jump puzzles was worth the effort in my opinion. Combat had its ups and downs. I liked the parry and the counter system, and like I mentioned before, using the Force powers was a highlight, and that goes for the combat too. Outside of that though, I thought your standard swinging of the lightsaber was a bit tedious, with the scrub enemies getting cut in half by flashy moves left and right, which was fun the first 1,000 times, but maybe started to take a little bit too much time, and the tougher enemies, including some of the bosses and larger creatures, feeling like big damage sponges that did not really provide a whole lot of satisfying feedback from your hits. The story was a fun Star Warsy romp, I liked the characters, the game looked beautiful, and I can't wait for a hopeful third game. One of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch is Octopath Traveler. Despite its disjointed stories, I really loved that game and played the absolute hell out of it. I was not expecting that game to get a sequel, but luckily for me, it did, and it lived up to the first one in my opinion. Octopath 2 has all the things from the first game with its great combat system, fantastic music, and the HD 2D art style it's so well known for. For the most part, Octopath 2 is just an improvement in all areas from the first game. Octopath's break system is still one of my favorite mechanics in turn-based RPGs, but Octopath 2 also adds in new latent abilities to increase your options and let you strategize a little bit more with each character, making them feel a little bit more unique. The music is still incredible, the kind of music I find myself listening to on YouTube in the background while I'm doing other things, and the art style and lighting effects of this game are so very pretty, and somehow it already looks far and above better than its predecessor. Kind of gives that effect where you thought the first game looked this good, but nope, it's a pretty noticeable improvement. And maybe the biggest improvement from the first is weaving the characters and stories together more to make it feel like one big game more so than 8 segmented stories like the original. There's still some of that here, don't get me wrong, but there is just enough character interactions here to make it work. If you like turn-based games, Octopath 2 should be high on your list of priorities. I don't think it got quite the attention it deserved last year. Have you ever heard before that Resident Evil 4 is a good game? This was news to me. I'd never heard anyone talk about Resident Evil 4 and it being one of the best games of all time, and I'd never noticed that it seems to have been ported to every single platform in existence. I decided to take a chance on this game early this year with Resident Evil 4 Remake, and fellas, it was pretty good. Tell your friends. I'm not a big horror guy, so I played this game with the lights on, but the uneasiness and unsettling nature of Resident Evil 4's levels didn't get to me too much because the fun I was having was eclipsing any fear I had. The game creates a great balance of letting you have fun while also being very stressed, and I think that's an impressive line to walk. The opening village sequence was a blast, quite literally a blast once I found the shotgun. The gunplay feels really good in this game, the punchy feedback you get from firing and the responses from the things you are shooting are very well done. There's such a good give and take with this game where at one moment I felt fully stocked up with all heals and ammo from all the exploring I just did, only to get thrown into a situation where I have to use a lot of my resources and I feel very vulnerable again coming out of that. I really enjoyed the inventory management, trying to figure out what weapons I really need to keep and what I ought to just sell for more money to upgrade the other weapons. Resident Evil 4 was a great experience, and I'm glad I finally got around to trying it. I look forward to eventually giving it another run and trying the Separate Ways DLC. Spider-Man 2 is a bit of an odd one for me. Some parts of this game are so impressive I found myself wondering if this could have been my game of the year. Swinging and gliding through New York was amazing, and from a technical perspective, this game was rock solid in performance, looked incredible, and had one of the coolest fast travel systems in a game with the near instantaneous loading. But there were some aspects of the game that did bring it down a tad, preventing it from getting top honors. Combat is flashy and fun, but I felt like it got a little repetitive as the game went on. It wasn't so much that I didn't like webbing dudes to the wall and hitting them with vicious finishers, it was that I was rarely more than 5 minutes separated from doing that, unless I was in a longer story sequence, and that always wasn't what I wanted to do either. I enjoyed the story quite a bit, and while I'm not a huge fan of the walks and talks, I get that that's part of how the game's story is being told, and it didn't bother me that much. Sometimes I just found myself wishing I was swinging around without a care in the world, heading nowhere in particular. Exploring the city to get collectibles and do little challenges scattered about was my favorite thing, and I cleared out every single little box I could check before advancing the story the whole way through. I have always loved Mario games, but when it comes to 2D or 3D, I've always been partial to the 3D Mario games. I still play the 2D Marios, and there's a few of them that I love, like Mario 3, World, and Land 2, but the rest I'm not going to fight for super hard. That's kind of where 2D Mario has been for most of my life. If I want to play one of those, I just go back to the well and replay one of the classics. But I'm really happy to say that I think Mario Wonder had entered that pool of fantastic 2D Marios for me. The creativity with the levels and the wonder seeds inside of them have been talked to death, and for good reason, but for me it's even simpler than that. I just really liked how it felt to run around and jump in this game. The higher attention to animations and the great pairing of the jump to that great jump sound effect made all the difference, especially following the Paint by Numbers new series games. Some slight dings against this game for me personally. I really liked the world skipping available in games like 3 and Mario World that didn't exist in this game. I like having the option to beat the game in 15 minutes if that's how I choose to play it that run. I think overall the game was a little on the easy side. Some of the special world levels brought some challenge, sure, but I think that was spoiled by how great bonus levels could be after playing a game like Mario 3D World. I like having optional levels at the end that really put me through the ringer and test my skills, but there's only really one level like that in Wonder. I also think it's a slight missed opportunity making all the characters control the same. Could have brought some extra good replay value and variety if each character had different jump heights, run speeds, slipperiness, and so on. I get this changes the balance and required some extra thinking while designing the levels, but I still think that could have been cool. Overall though, the game was a delight, and I played the whole thing with a smile on my face, and after finishing it, I still have a smile on my face, hoping that 2D Mario is back on the right trajectory. Fire Emblem Engage is a game I had some high hopes for. I'm a big Fire Emblem fan, it's probably my favorite series overall, and the previous entry to the series, Three Houses, is probably my favorite game ever to grace this earth. So did Engage reach those heights? No, but I still think I had a really good time with it. While playing through Engage the first time, I was super impressed with the actual tactics gameplay itself. I really feel like the game gave the player so many tools to mess around with, and no matter how tough of a situation I put myself in, I feel like those tools gave me some sort of solution to overcome anything I was put against. The new break system was a real interesting way to incorporate their weapon triangle, and made me play the game differently. And I thought the options that the different rings gave after building out your characters for what skills they would have and what roles they would fill in your team was really neat. Like I mentioned, big Fire Emblem fan. So I quite enjoyed seeing lots of characters from past games and playing through maps inspired from previous entries in the series, but the nostalgia and fan service can only go so far when creating a narrative to a story, and that is where Fire Emblem Engage fell for me, and I'm sure many others. Story is just kind of nonsense. That doesn't make me resent the game, but it does stop me from putting it up there with some of my favorites in the series. Now does Three Houses, the game I said might be my favorite game ever, have a perfect story? Not at all. But it does create a world I'm interested in being in, it does provide some lore I can speculate on, provides characters I can attach to, and Engage fell short in doing any of that. That being said, it is worth reiterating just how much I enjoyed the gameplay of Engage. Being able to get into the top 5 of a year like 2023 for me, despite having a story I wanted to skip through even my first go-round, is impressive. Lies of P is a game I distinctly remember laughing at with friends, thinking it was a silly concept, and personally, I didn't have super high expectations for the game. Well, here I am apologizing for that silly behavior. I should not have rushed to any conclusions for playing the game, because I enjoyed the hell out of this game. It is probably the closest a game has come to a FromSoft Souls game, and I love those games. I loved exploring every inch of the interweaving levels, finding secrets and completing NPC side quests. It was always a good time finding a new weapon and trying it out for the first time and using the great new weapon combination system to experiment and make a weapon that fit my gameplay style. The Dark Souls level up system really speaks to me, and Liza P functions the same way. Getting out of a tough area or boss fight and having to decide what I want to spend my experience on is incredibly satisfying, and I love just devolving into making my damage number go big after telling myself I would make a thoughtful balance of stats once again. The Legion arm mechanic really brought in variety, allowing you to choose what kind of strategy you want to bring into each area. Do you want to shoot elemental damage, have a shield arm, pull enemies from ledges from far places, or just have a solid ranged damage option? They were all viable and available for you to try out. The atmosphere in this game is top tier. The jerky animations with the puppets was just the right level of unsettling, and the rainy, damp, dark streets of Krat really put me into the game. The cozy warmth of the hotel provided a great break from all this, too, allowing me to feel safe when I level up and upgrade my weapons before getting back out there to find some new twisted monster puppet. I have played through this game 2 times already, and once the DLC comes out, I am very ready to put in a third run. Pikmin is one of those series I've never gotten around to playing, and I've never been all that interested in trying. Not sure why. But Pikmin 4 came out in a time this year when I was between games and reviews were hot, so I decided I would give it a go, and now here I am, a Pikmin fan. Running around the world of Pikmin 4 as a little astronaut guy and his creepy big yellow dog horse was hard for me to put down. I can't really put into words how much fun it was for me to walk up onto a Bulborb, or whatever those freaks are called, just mash the A button to throw 50 bloodthirsty plant friends at it and watch them beat the tar out of him, and then proceed to carry that thing's corpse back to my camp for Sparkium. When I wasn't brutally killing the local wildlife, finding treasures that called to real life otherwise ordinary objects was really funny, and finding various Nintendo hardware hidden in the dirt in some backyard was always a fun surprise. I could not stop myself from 100%ing this game. I didn't even want to progress to the next area until I absolutely got every item I could in the one I was on. The caves and the Dundori challenges were a nice way to break up the time in the overworld between gathering treasures and killing tough monsters. Being able to go back and replay all those challenges to get the highest ranking made me pretty happy. If you like checking boxes and seeing 100% complete in gold letters, this is the game for you. Filling out the little monster encyclopedia, fulfilling other stranded astronauts' requests, and finding all the treasures scattered around was incredibly fulfilling and helped me love this game as much as I did. One of my most anticipated games coming into 2023 was Final Fantasy XVI. Every time I saw a new trailer, I was getting more and more hyped, and for me, the game stuck the landing. Sure, the game had a couple problems. Some of the quests really felt like they drew from the team's experience making MMO side quests in FF14, fetch this, kill that, and so on. But there were several side quests that allowed me to fight unique monsters, or get some meaningful extra story and lore to make the game feel that much more full. There were the remains of what seemed like an underbaked, unfinished crafting system with all the random enemy drops and worthless items littering my inventory. But once I realized that this was not an RPG with action gameplay, this was an action game with some RPG elements, I was able to put some of those shortcomings to the side. I loved the combat system in this game. Flying around, juggling monsters, and dishing out insanely cool attacks left and right made me feel like a badass, and I loved trying out new combinations once I unlocked a new set of skills. The game is gorgeous. Character models, especially the main crew, are very well made, and the environments, while sometimes a bit lacking on explorability, were beautiful, and sometimes I would just stop and stare at the screen for a bit. The effects from all the magic and attacks were very flashy and eye-catching as well. Music was constantly a highlight, as to be expected, and the performances given by the voice talent were top-notch. Clive being front and center all game, and the range of emotions conveyed by Ben Starr made him feel like a real person I knew, not just a character on my screen. Ralph Ineson, as Sid, was incredible as well. Loved pretty much every line he delivered. Of course it doesn't stop there, but those two were my favorites. I know I'm the first person who has the same opinion. I like the story. It feels much more personal in the beginning and then turns into a very Final Fantasy story by the end, but I did not mind it. I loved the world, and any drop of lore I could read about I was there for. Moments of triumph, moments of loss, moments doubting who or what you really were and what that meant, all hit for me, and I think in other years, this game would have been an easy number 1 for me. My favorite game of the year was Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games ever, and this game built on that foundation so well and somehow managed to make one of my favorite games something I'm not sure if I even need to go back to play to anymore. The way everything just kind of works in this game never stopped impressing me. One thing that always blew my mind was how the game was constantly tracking the movements of every little object to where you could use recall and have that object reverse in time. The work done under the hood for things like that and Ultra Hand is incredibly impressive. Even though I had thoroughly explored this Hyrule before, Tears of the Kingdom did a great job of making it feel fresh, and I was always excited to get back to an area I remember from Breath of the Wild to see how it had changed. Not to mention the additions of the depths and the sky islands to really expand the world and allow you to mix up where you want to explore, helping keep each section feel fresh and new. Goofing around in vehicles was so much constant fun. I had my go-to flying machine that I would just make it random places and fly around aimlessly. Finding the Korax that needed to get brought back to their friend was always allowed for some funny opportunities like launching them down a hill, barreling to an uncertain end, or just strapping a rock to them and seeing where the hell that lands them. Once I started playing this game, I really didn't want to stop. I lost sleep for this game, I took time off of work for this game, I did not want to stop playing this game. Tears of the Kingdom is not only my favorite game from 2023, but one of my favorite games I have ever played. Thanks for watching. So many great games last year and not even played near all the ones I wanted to get to. Games like Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Cocoon are all on my list, and I hope I can find some time to play them down the line. As things sit right now, 2024 hasn't fully showed itself yet, so here I am telling myself I'll have all this time to go replay older games and get to series I've never tried before, but I'm sure, looking back a year from now, that will not be the case. I look forward to what's to come, and hopefully I can find some time to talk about what I play as the year goes on. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.